Playing with Power MTG. Powerful cards, powerful formats. Be sure to check out Dragon Shield for all of the best accessories to protect your decks. TCGPLAYER for cards at great prices while supporting local game stores. And Patreon, where you get awesome benefits for your direct support. Our patron Sean is back for another game. He wanted to battle with one of his favorite decks, and we will see how it does tonight. Tier 1 Con in Copenhagen, Denmark is coming August 13th through the 15th. It aims to be the largest CEDH tournament to date with over $5,000 in prizes. Playing with Power will be there to meet our fellow CEDH players and participate in the tournament. Be sure to come out and play for amazing prizes. Links are in the description. Right after Tier 1 Con, we will be having another CEDH tournament on our Discord on August 21st. It is played over webcam and is 100% proxy friendly. All patrons in our Discord are eligible to participate in the tournament. We have set up a great prize structure, including Dragon Shield product for the top 16, a copy of Dockside Extortionist for the top 4, and the grand prize for this tournament being a Force of Will. Sign up to our Patreon today and get in on the webcam tournament. Now, let's start out by showcasing our fighters this evening. First, we have Mike piloting the partner pair of Thrasios Triton Hero and Bruse Taro Boorish Herder. This is a stacks deck called Blue Pod. It seeks to land hate bears, interact with the board, and combo with Yisan, Survival of the Fittest, or Birthing Pod lines. Mike's opening hand contains an Archon of Emeria, Training Grounds, Arbor Elf, Verdant Catacombs, Tropical Island, and his London Mulligans are Rejuvenating Springs and a Taiga. Next, we have Sean piloting the partner pair of Tymna the Weaver and Thrasios Triton Hero. This deck is called Razakats. It seeks to reanimate Razakat the Foul-Blooded and go infinite with a number of different lines. Sean's opening hand contains an Assassin's Trophy, Carpet of Flowers, Elves of Deep Shadow, Lurrus of the Dream Den, Birds of Paradise, Bayou, and his London Mulligan is Razakat the Foul-Blooded. After that we have Zach piloting Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain. This is a storm deck seeking to leverage its commander to draw a lot of cards before executing a combo finish. Zach's opening hand contains a Soul Ring, Hull Breacher, a Braid, Mental Misstep, Force of Will, Wooded Foothills, and an Ancient Tomb. Finally, we have Folger piloting Niv-Mizzet Perun. This is a deck that seeks to control the board before landing a Curiosity effect on its commander and killing the table. Folger's opening hand contains a Dispel, Gilded Drake, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, Command Tower, Scalding Tarn, and an Island. Without further ado, let's begin this big bombastic bombardment of berating boys. Zach wins the Banana Sprite Challenge and gets to start us off. Zach draws a card for turn and plays a Wooded Foothills. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Volcanic Island. He casts a Soul Ring and passes to Folger. Folger draws a card for turn and plays a Command Tower. He casts a Mox Diamond, discarding Scalding Tarn. He passes. Mike draws a card for turn and plays a Tropical Island. He casts an Arbor Elf. Mike ends his turn. Sean draws a card for turn and plays a Bayou. He casts a Carpet of Flowers. He moves to his second main phase and adds 1 green through his carpet. He casts a Birds of Paradise. He casts a Lion's Eye Diamond. With everyone knowing who the target is for the rest of the game, Sean passes. Zach draws and plays an Ancient Tomb. He passes. Folger draws and plays an Island. He also passes. Mike draws and plays a Verdant Catacombs. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Savannah onto the battlefield. He casts a Training Grounds. He uses his Arbor Elf to help cast his commander, Thrasios Triton Hero. Mike passes to Sean. Sean draws, and in his first main phase, he adds 1 green through his carpet. He casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. He ships the turn to Zach. At the end of Sean's turn, Zach flashes in a Hull Breacher. It resolves, and still in the end step, Folger casts Thunderclap, targeting Hull Breacher. In response, Zach casts Force of Will, paying a life and exiling a blue card from his hand. Thunderclap is countered, and Zach moves to his turn. Zach draws and starts off by casting Jeska's Will. He exiles the top 3 cards of his library, which are a Mystical Tutor, Reshape, and an Arid Mesa. Zach plays Arid Mesa. He attacks Folger with Hull Breacher. Folger takes it, and in his second main phase, Zach cracks his Arid Mesa. He pays a life and fetches up a Steam Vents onto the battlefield untapped, paying 2 life. He casts Mystical Tutor. He fetches up a Wheel of Fortune onto the top of his library. With everyone worried, Zach passes the turn. Folger draws and starts off by casting Mana Crypt. He plays an Island for turn. He casts Gilded Drake. Everyone knows what the target is, and Gilded Drake resolves. Drake enters and exchanges control with Mike's Thrasios. The rest of the table scratches their heads, but Folger lets them know he has a plan. With nothing else, Folger passes the turn. Mike draws and plays a Gaia's Cradle for turn. He attacks Folger with his Gilded Drake. Folger takes it, and in his second main phase, Mike casts Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing his Gilded Drake. He fetches up a Yisan, the Wanderer Bard, onto the battlefield. Mike passes the turn. Sean draws, and in his first main phase, he adds 2 black through his carpet. He plays a Gemstone Caverns for turn. Hedging his bets against the inevitable wheel, he casts Lurrus of the Dream Den. He attacks Zach with Tymna. Zach takes it, and Sean gains 2 life. In his second main phase, Sean doesn't elect to trigger Tymna due to the Hull Breacher on the table. With nothing else, Sean passes the turn. Zach draws and starts off his turn by casting Wheel of Fortune. Everyone now waits to see what Folger's big plans were. Folger passes priority. Everyone befuddled wonder what to do next. Sean then responds by casting Assassin's Trophy, targeting Hull Breacher. Zach responds by casting Swan Song, targeting Trophy. Assassin's Trophy is countered, and Sean creates a 2/2 bird. With Wheel of Fortune still in the stack, Mike responds by casting Enlightened Tutor. He fetches up a Mana Crypt onto the top of his library. With nothing else, and no other responses, Wheel of Fortune resolves. Everyone discards their hand, Zach draws 7, and Zach creates 21 treasures through Hull Breacher. Zach taps his Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain. He plays a command tower for turn. He casts Helm of Awakening. Jhoira triggers, and Zach draws. He casts a Conjurer's Bauble. Jhoira triggers, and Zach draws. He casts a Tormod script, drawing through Jhoira. He casts an Everflowing Chalice, kicked once, drawing through Jhoira. He transmutes Muddle the Mixture. He fetches up an Underworld Breach into his hand. He casts Underworld Breach. It resolves, and Zach follows up by escaping Mystical Tutor from his graveyard. He fetches up a Brain Freeze onto the top of his library. He cracks his Conjurer's Bauble, drawing a card. He casts Brain Freeze with a storm count of 12, targeting himself with every copy. He mills 36 cards into his graveyard, including a Lion's Eye Diamond. He then proceeds to present a loop of escaping Lion's Eye Diamond, cracking it for 3 blue, and then escaping Brain Freeze, targeting each opponent until they mill their entire deck. Zach passes the turn, sacrificing Underworld Breach. One by one, each opponent draws from an empty library, and Zach wins the game. Wow, what an awesome and quick game. After that game, everyone asked what Folger's plan was and why he traded with Thrasios instead of Hull Breacher. Folger basically said that he was hedging his bets against the other 2 players being able to deal with it. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose when you take chances like this. Since that game was so quick, let's do another, shall we? In this game, Folger brings back Niv-Mizzet Perun, and his opening hand contains a Curiosity, Mana Crypt, Gush, Command Tower, Mountain, Sleight of Hand, and a Snapback. Mike brings back Thrasios and Bruse, and his opening hand contains a Windswept Heath, City of Brass, Arbor Elf, Llanowar Elves, Polluted Delta, Yisan the Wanderer Bard, and a Training Grounds. Sean brings back Tymna and Thrasios, and his opening hand contains a Wooded Foothills, Flooded Strand, Force of Will, Bloom Tender, Carpet of Flowers, Demonic Consultation, and an Assassin's Trophy. Zach brings back Jhoira this game, and his opening hand contains a Deflecting Swat, Transmute Artifact, Mystical Tutor, Grim Monolith, Soul Ring, Izzet Signet, and a Spirebluff Canal. Folger wins the Book Bucket Challenge and gets to start us off. Folger draws a card for turn and plays a Command Tower. He casts a Mana Crypt. He casts a Sleight of Hand. He looks at the top 2, puts one into his hand and the other on the bottom. He casts a Sensei's Divining Top. He activates top, looking at the top 3 and rearranging. With an amazing turn 1 in the books, Folger passes to Mike. Mike draws a card for turn and plays a Polluted Delta. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a tropical island onto the battlefield. He casts an Arbor Elf and passes the turn. Sean draws a card for turn and plays a Wooded Foothills. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a Bayou onto the battlefield. He casts Carpet of Flowers. He moves to his second main phase and adds 1 green through his carpet. He casts an Arbor Elf of his own. All through, Sean passes to Zach. Zach draws a card for turn and plays an Ancient Tomb. He taps Ancient Tomb to cast a Soul Ring. He casts an Izzet Signet. He casts a Grim Monolith. With a turn 1 that rivals Folger, Zach ends his turn. During his upkeep, Folger wins his Mana Crypt flip. He draws and plays an island. He activates top, drawing a card and putting top on top. He casts a Treasonous Ogre. Folger passes the turn. Mike draws and plays a City of Brass. He taps City of Brass to cast Yisan the Wanderer Bard. Mike ends his turn. Sean draws, and in his first main phase, he adds 1 white through his carpet. He plays a Flooded Strand for turn. He cracks it, pays a life, and fetches up a tropical island onto the battlefield. He casts his commander, Tymna the Weaver. He follows up with a Deathrite Shaman. Sean passes to Zach. Zach draws and plays a Spirebluff Canal. He taps his Ancient Tomb to cast his commander, Jhoira, Weatherlight Captain. Zach ships the turn to Folger. During his upkeep, Folger loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He draws and recasts Sensei's Divining Top. He immediately flips his top, drawing and putting top on top. He plays an Exotic Orchard for turn. He pays 3 life and adds 1 red through Treasonous Ogre. He casts Frantic Search. He draws 2, discards 2, and untaps 3 lands. He pays 9 life to add 3 red through the Ogre. He casts his commander, Niv-Mizzet Perun. In response, Zach casts Mystical Tutor. He fetches up a paradoxical outcome onto the top of his library. Then Niv resolves. Folger immediately follows up by casting Curiosity. In response, Zach casts Deflecting Swat for its alternate cost, targeting Curiosity. Niv triggers, Folger draws, Niv triggers again, and deals 1 damage to Mike's Arbor Elf, killing it. In response to Swat, Folger casts Fierce Guardianship for its alternate cost, targeting Swat. Niv triggers, Folger draws, Niv triggers again, and kills Sean's Arbor Elf. Guardianship counters Swat, and Curiosity resolves. Folger casts Snapback for its alternate cost, exiling a blue card from his hand, targeting Yisan. Niv triggers, Folger draws, Niv triggers again, and deals 1 to Sean. Curiosity triggers, and Niv triggers again. Folger then presents a loop, using Niv and Curiosity to draw enough cards and deal enough damage to kill both Sean and Zach. However, he does not have enough cards in his library to kill Mike as well, so he stops the loop. After that, Yisan bounces to Mike's hand. Folger attacks Mike with Treasonous Ogre. Dethrone triggers, and Ogre gets a +1/+1 counter. Mike takes it, and in his second main phase, Folger casts a Chrome Mox. It resolves, and Folger imprints Gush. Now sitting on a bunch of cards in his hand, and not enough cards in his library, he must now make a plan. He casts a Sol Ring. He casts a Felwar Stone. He casts a Jeweled Lotus, Jeweled Amulet, Mox Opal, and a Spellskite. He passes the turn, discarding a ton of cards to hand size. Mike draws and plays a Windswept Heath. He casts a Llanowar Elves. He taps his City of Brass to cast Noble Hierarch. He cracks his Windswept Heath, pays a life, and fetches up a Tundra onto the battlefield. He casts Training Grounds and passes the turn back to Folger. During his upkeep, Folger loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He draws, Niv triggers, and deals a damage to Noble Hierarch, killing it. He casts Brainstorm. Niv triggers, Folger draws, and he kills Llanowar Elves. Then Brainstorm resolves, Folger draws 3 and puts 2 back on top. Niv triggers 3 times and deals 3 to Mike. Folger casts a Mox Diamond, discarding Arid Mesa. He casts a Phantasmal Image. It enters as a copy of Treasonous Ogre. He attacks Mike with the Ogre and Niv-Mizzet. Dethrone triggers, and the Ogre gets another counter. Mike takes it, and Folger passes the turn. Mike draws and taps his City of Brass to cast Yisan the Wanderer Bard. He passes. At the end of Mike's turn, Folger casts Submerge for its alternate cost, targeting Yisan. Niv triggers and deals 1 to Mike. Yisan goes onto the top of Mike's library, and the turn passes to Folger. During his upkeep, Folger loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He draws, Niv triggers, and deals 1 to Mike. Folger pays 3 life and adds 1 red to his pool to keep Mike on the throne and get more Ogre triggers. He moves to combat and attacks Mike with both Ogres and Niv. Dethrone triggers, and both Ogres get a counter. Mike takes it, and Folger passes the turn. Mike draws, sees the writing on the wall, and passes the turn. During his upkeep, Folger loses his Mana Crypt trigger and takes 3 damage. He draws, Niv triggers, and Mike takes 1. Folger moves to combat and attacks Mike with everything, killing him and winning the game. Ladies and gentlemen, what an awesome set of games tonight. Congrats to Zach and Folger on their wins. They had some amazing openers and were able to capitalize on it to close out the game early. The table was relying too heavily on politics in Game 1, and it really crippled Zach's opponents, and he was able to close out the game with some really good lines. Folger's deck isn't usually set up to win so early. Most of the time, when the combo hits the table, everyone's life totals are much lower. So, Folger had to find a way to kill Mike without decking himself by accident. The most valuable card in Game 1 goes to Hull Breacher. Yes, we know that this card is banned, but this was filmed months ago before the ban. This card, when paired with Wheel of Fortune, gave Zach the resources to close out the game. It was able to do this while stripping his opponent's hands of interaction at the same time, basically guaranteeing victory without interruption. Everyone at the table wondered why Folger didn't steal it with his Gilded Drake. He hedged his bets, but it didn't pay off for him. The most valuable card in Game 2 goes to Treasonous Ogre. This is what enabled Folger to land his commander so early. Being able to trade life for any sort of resource is a busted mechanic. Whether it be mana or cards, using a life total as high as it is in Commander will usually let you run away with the game. The dethrone mechanic was basically icing on the cake after that. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Tune in next time when we duke it out to see who will be king of the competitive EDH table. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. It is Patreon shoutout time. Like to give a shout out to Nitai Rubinovics. Ooh, that's a tough one. Ivan Thumatarian Descendant, Frapril, Nathan Smith, Elijah Miller, J-Rock, Pyro, Dark, Philip Hickey, Brad Tobin, Sanguino Lindsay, Snarps the Klept, Matt Wingrove, Delphdriz, Dante, Jared Smith, Baby Jeebus, Trey Payne, Rikeko, Greg Babe, Zods, Spielrahu, CZ, Nick, and Liam. Thank you all very much for your support.